All right, welcome into another fantasy football face-off here on getsportsinfo.com. I'm Dan Clasgens. He's James Adams. Today we're talking about some sophomore wide receivers. Some more members of that 2011 draft class starting to pay big dividends for fantasy owners, James, and none bigger than the Bengals' A.J. Green. He has been sensational. We both viewed him as a top 3 wideout coming into the season, and man, has he delivered. I think we might take him over Calvin Johnson if we were drafting today. 67 targets he's had. He's over 600 yards. He's finding the end zone on a very regular basis. James, 16.7 points per game for non-PPR owners. He's only better in PPR leagues. A.J. Green, the stud of the class, but a lot of other good names on that list.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dan. And the obvious next guy to talk about from last year's draft class, Julio Jones. He's not quite in that top 12 of fantasy receivers right now, but he's had 3 awesome games, 2 subpar games. It's been pretty hit and miss with him, but he did have a little bit of a hand injury, and that's obviously a problem for a wide receiver. He seems to be coming out of it, and let's face it, Matt Ryan hasn't stopped throwing him the football. He's had 54 targets so far this year, talking about 4 touchdowns, 376 yards. Julio Jones has also been one of those fast risers in the NFL, acclimated himself very good so far.
Yeah, I like what he's done. I like what Torrey Smith has done. He hasn't offered the consistency that we've seen from A.J. Green, but the big plays have been almost as good as what we've seen from Julio Jones. I mean, he had the whole deal with his brother dying. He responded with a couple great games in a row. Hasn't done as much over these last 2, but at the end of the day, in a non-PPR league, he enters this week as the 9th leading scorer at the position, James. He's a guy that you can confidently bank on in your lineup as a low-end wide receiver to a high-end flex play in any given matchup. And I think he's only going to get better. Joe Flacco's got a cannon for the arm. He's got the speed to stretch the field. And with Anquan Bolden playing well underneath, I think the opportunities are going to be there for him to exploit things. He's a guy that I would definitely target in a trade and love to have on almost any of my lineups. Another player that we're talking about, how about former Kentucky Wildcat Randall Cobb and what he's doing for the Packers, James?
Yeah, Dan, Randall Cobb's had a really nice season so far. Only the 1 touchdown on offense, but 346 yards, and they've been going to him a lot. And right now, with Greg Jennings on the shelf, you don't know how often he's going to be in and out of the lineup, things we've seen from him in the past. Jermichael Finley's a little bit banged up. I think Cobb's numbers only go up as Aaron Rodgers is going to be looking at him. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy who's rising really quick. So obviously having him, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, throwing the ball at the Cobb, not a bad deal at all. You know, Dan, I know there's one more guy on that list you like, a guy who's been in and out of the lineup a little bit, but when he plays, he's been great. How about Denarius Moore this year so far?
I love me some Denarius Moore, James. I mean, he is an explosive playmaker. We saw glimpses of it as a rookie. He had some problems transitioning with Carson Palmer last season, but Palmer loves this guy. If it wasn't for that hamstring injury that pretty much nagged him all through June, early into this season, we might have already seen some big numbers, but Sunday could be the beginning of more things to come. He caught 5 balls, 105 yards, and a touchdown versus the Falcons. He did suffer a shoulder injury in that game, so once again, we're worried about his name popping up on the injury report. But of the guys on the list, he comes probably at the lowest price, and he delivers just as good a potential athletically as, well, almost any of them. I like Denarius Moore. I like his schedule. I like what the Raiders are going to do in the second half. I mean, that terrible defense, one thing you can count on is Carson Palmer airing it out early and often, and the guy he's going to be looking for first, his name's Denarius Moore. That's all the time we have for today. Be sure to catch James and myself every Sunday, along with Stephanie Theobald. It's the Cricket Wireless Fantasy Football Game Day, and it's